Boop. No intro today? All right, we might be having.
Being glitchy, one second.
Yeah. The excitement of live broadcasting. Never know what's going to happen. I'm just going to go ahead with it, and then if it pops on, it pops on. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Talksicology. I am your usual co-host, Jason Cabello. Hello and welcome to another episode of Talksicology, brought to you by Recovery Unplugged. Here at Talksicology, we talk all things addiction, recovery, and mental health. Tonight's guest, addiction professional Ian Jackson. I'm your co-host, Jason Cabello, and as always, your host and mine, Joseph Gorordo. Okay, there we go. All right, so as I was saying before, I was rudely interrupted by our there. Joseph Gerardo just checked in. So, yeah, Joseph Gerardo is not here today. It's going to be just me. Joseph is out there in the trenches, saving lives. He's out there, doing what he does as the vice president of operations for Recovery Unplugged. Whatever that entails, he's out there, doing God's work. He's actually at South by Southwest. I can't lie. He's at South by Southwest, but hey, man, Joseph works really hard. All joking aside, Joseph works incredibly hard. And this is the first South by Southwest that's happened in Austin in the last couple of years. So Joseph had the opportunity to go. He, of course, asked me and Greg and everyone else if we minded, and we said, no, please go, Joseph. Enjoy yourself. We hope you're having a great time. And he's actually doing some investigative journalism for Talksicology. So tune in next week and you'll see we'll have a little piece of Joseph hitting the streets at South by Southwest. I'm a little lonely up here. I know you're busy behind the scenes, Greg. You mind chiming in for a couple minutes here to so it's jibber jabber and not just gibber?
I'll be happy to be your jabber, Jace.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, so we're here in Austin, Texas, Greg, Joseph, and myself. And it's the first South by Southwest in a couple years. Oh, before I get to that, happy St. Patrick's Day, y'all.
Yeah. That's
happy
today,
St. Patrick's Day. You don't have to go out there and drink a ton of green beer and make your life a mess. And I saw a meme today that said St. Patrick's Day is just 420 for alcoholics. And I see my mom is on there, Nancy Mraz, and she would always call St. Patrick's Day amateur night. And it was the night that, you'd go out there and everybody who usually does it, who can't handle their drinks, is out there doing it to the best of their ability. And hello, Lisa Pascarosa. Thank you for chiming in. We love you, Lisa. Lisa's great. Greg, so both me and Greg are not native Texans. And, Greg, have you been to South by Southwest before?
Yeah, once, and ironically enough, it was indeed with Joseph Gorordo as well. South by always falls on my birthday. At least my birthday usually falls within that window. And when I was still doing alumni work here at Recovery Unplugged, Joseph thought I would be a good fit to go. And by no complaints on my end, it was a whole work day, and we just watched live music all day and set up an outreach booth and got to meet a bunch of really cool people. It was awesome.
That's rough, man.
Yeah, right.
Recovery Unplugged really treats their employees terribly. Mm-hmm. No, that's great. And I actually went to my first South by Southwest event last night, and it was fucking phenomenal. I had the best time. And I know that I've talked on here about that I don't really enjoy music festivals. And South by Southwest isn't like a traditional music festival where you're out there in the open and there's just a couple of stages where you could go see various bands. It's like downtown Austin and the surrounding area just turns into, everything is turned into a music venue. And I went to a church downtown, and they had a showcase there, and the band Perfume Genius played, and it was one of the best live shows I've ever seen. It was absolutely fantastic. So I'm really happy that I got to experience my first South by Southwest by living here in Austin, because back home in Florida, where I moved here from, I never got to experience anything like that. Do you have anything like that in Jersey?
No.
Where that
No, man. I mean, we had Warped Tour would come to town every summer, but that was about it. We didn't have any recurring festivals of the sort.
All right. Well, I appreciate you hopping on, Greg. And like I was saying, I moved here from Florida a couple of years back, and I went through Recovery Unplugged in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And part of the recovery team there, who helped me become the shining example of recovery that I am today, is our guest, who is none other than Mr. Ian Jackson. Ian, welcome to the show, man.
Hello, Jason. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Oh, it's getting dark there, and you're in Georgia, right?
Yep. Actually, in Georgia right now. I don't know if you could see the. Yep, you definitely can't see the beautiful view, but just trust me when I say it's beautiful.
Yeah, man, Ian, thank you. And everybody, Ian is on vacation, and he agreed to do this on his time off, or he should be hanging out with his family. But he's one of those guys, always says yes to anything you ask him. I love him very much, man. He was part of the recovery team. He wasn't my primary therapist at Recovery Unplugged, but he was part of the team, and he ran many groups that I was in. And Ian is one of the few. So every therapist that I've ever met or worked with in any capacity at any treatment center has always made a difference. But Ian is one of those people who, if a client was having like a really bad time, like they would only want to talk to Ian. Like Ian was that guy that, he had such a special connection with so many people and has touched so many lives. And, he's here to talk about, the current world has changed quite a bit, and so is the face of treatment. And Ian is now spearheading Recovery Unplugged virtual services, which gives somebody the option who might not make it to come to a 30-day treatment program. And yeah, Ian is taking charge of that. So Ian, man, you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, before I do that, firstly, I just want to say I'm really proud of you, Jason, for just where you've come, and where you came from and where you're at right now. I mean, it's really a beautiful thing when I'm able to help somebody and impact their life in some way, and then they're a coworker, right?
Right.
Then that goes for you and Greg, of course. And yeah, I mean, it's just, I'm really, really passionate about what we do here at Recovery Unplugged. And I believe in it, which makes it easy to do, and which makes it easy to be involved. I've been with the company now for going on 7 years, and I love it. So, but the newest thing that we've been doing, and it's not so new now because we've been doing it now since July of 2021, is offering virtual outpatient services at Recovery Unplugged. And the idea really came from one of the biggest reasons that telehealth even existed in the first place pre-COVID, and this is even before COVID. Telehealth services already existed, in our world, but it just became so prevalent when the pandemic came along. Because right. I think that especially in the addiction world, almost everybody was impacted by this when it came from meetings being shut down, therapists not seeing people in person, outpatient treatment centers not seeing people in person. And I'm a firm believer that nothing really can beat the in-person connection between individuals, right?
Right.
But even, me being in Georgia and you being in Austin and just seeing you on the screen, it feels like we're in the same room together. So you're still able to create that connected experience, which is what we're aiming for. Were you about to say something?
And I was just going to say things have changed so much over the past couple of years and what communication is like, so I remember back before COVID, maybe I'd have one Zoom call a week with like a team that was in different locations. And now it's like 5, 6, 7, 5, 6, 7 a week. And even, you watch television shows, talk shows, and you see that most people are doing everything via Zoom. So why not be able to help people? Because there are people who simply cannot take the 30 days that it takes to go to an inpatient treatment facility, whether it be for work, family, tons of options. So who do you think that the virtual services are for? Who do you think this would impact the most?
When it comes to looking at who it impacts the most, we're really looking at, look at the benefits alone just of telemedicine across the board. There's no transportation, right? There's no time or cost of transportation. There's no need to take any time off of work. There's, you have childcare. You're able to actually be home and take part in telehealth services and be able to take care of your children. I mean, it's basically on demand in a sense of the word, right?
Right.
I mean, and also too, if you're looking at the pandemic, it's also less chance of a spread of an illness as well, because you're doing this from the comfort of your own home. And the biggest piece, and really was the biggest reason why we created this, was when we kept having people in our Nashville facility go home to areas of Tennessee that are extremely remote. And right. I can only really bring up one remote area of Texas just because my geography is not that good. But from what I hear, Amarillo, Texas is pretty remote. And we have had many clients from that area as well who are just going home from treatment, and they just, the nearest meeting's 30 to 45 minutes away, or all the therapists in their area are 30 to 45 minutes away. And sometimes that's just really not feasible for people. This created feasibility, access, connection to be able to experience Recovery Unplugged from the comfort of your own home. And really just for telehealth medicine in general, this allows people to experience, the services that they would normally receive from the comfort of their own home. Like I said, that in person is always going to be our best and number one option, but that's really who we were creating this for. We're trying to capture that audience of people who, struggle with the things identified earlier.
Right. So Nancy Mraz, my mom, asked if I would have been open to doing this, and I'm not sure that I'm not sure that it would have worked for me personally. I think I needed to be there, completely immersed with the groups and having the community there, because I'm such a social animal. I am just like, I'm like a pack animal. Like I thrive in the community. So is it fair to say that the virtual services might not be for everyone?
Yes, I think you could make that general statement, but then, me being who I am, is I would always come back with some type of small rebuttal like this, right? You say you're in many Zoom meetings each week now, right? And I imagine there's some people in those meetings that you look forward to seeing, hopefully, correct?
Yeah, I have a good team.
Which just shows the ability to experience that connection. So if it comes to, if I could use the example that you're still doing your job effectively with your team through telehealth, and through virtual, then I could make the argument that yes, maybe it could work for you now, but back then, right? Because I see some of the comments, Maggie is talking about, the isolation that's created an addiction. I agree with that piece. When you're going back home alone, it's tough, because that person is still potentially alone, but they're jumping onto that virtual experience with those people. So I agree with the statement that it may not be, I would say this, it may not be the best option for everyone, but I do think that it could potentially work.
Shit, man. I think I just had a breakthrough there. That's why Ian's so good at what he does. Here I am thinking like, yeah, this wouldn't work for me. And Ian talks me into it. And so it's like, give it a chance, Jason. This is, that's why he's so good at what he does, man. But yeah, so I just want to talk to you a little bit about Ian as a man, just Ian as a person, man. And
let's go for
what
it.
A cool guy he is to be around. I know a couple of things about you. You're extremely competitive. Whether it be ping pong, basketball, skateboarding, anything like that. So one of my favorite Ian stories is me and my cool guy friends were hanging out outside of Recovery Unplugged one day waiting for IOP to start, and we had our skateboards. We had just gone back from going skating all day, and I forgot what the bet was, but Ian wanted to get me to do something, and he was just like, if I could do a kickflip, will you go ahead and do it? I don't know if it was apply for a job somewhere or go to a meeting or something like that. And me and my friends are just like, yeah, look at this guy. And Ian could fucking skate, man. Ian was he really surprised me on how good he was. I shouldn't have been surprised knowing about how competitive he is and that he's pretty much good at everything he picks up. But that's another thing about you were my therapist and then a coworker, and then we became friends, and we actually went out skating a couple of times, and actually got to hang out, and that's the kind of stuff that that's what community is for me. Like, I would have never had these experiences if it weren't for going to treatment. But yeah, like you said, you could still make these connections virtually, and then it might prompt somebody to, when they get a chance to go somewhere and meet some of their their fellow people in recovery or in their groups, to go out and meet at a meeting or something like that, and to just expand their network a little bit more.
Absolutely. And I mean, when you bring up the competitive piece, where that channels in to delivering therapy services and delivering services to clients is, sure, we got the virtual IOP started, right? And it was, we were having groups, the clients were feeling connected. And then now it's, okay, how are we going to make it better? Okay, all right, we got that piece done. How are we going to make this even better? How are we going to create a just amazing experience and impact on people, which is the biggest thing that we're aiming for, is how can I impact somebody's life? Because I know from working in treatment for the last 12 years that every single client is not going to stay sober. But one thing that I know, based on what I'm going to do and what my team's going to do, is we're going to impact that person's life, regardless of whether they stay clean or not. After they leave our program, I know for a fact their life will be impacted, which might lead to them wanting to get sober again down the line. And that's tough. I know, and I'm not living with this relapse mentality, but what we're really trying to do is just make this better and better and better, to try to just create this massive impact to where people look forward to this.
Yeah. So Riley Osborne, what's up, Riley, asked, is it hard for people to connect through a screen?
Well, Riley, that's a good question. I'd say this. The example, I'm not sure if you listened to the example earlier that we talked about with Jason, connecting, and I'll give a different one just for because I like the challenge, right? I'd say this. When COVID began, everyone who knew how to use a phone or computer began jumping on Zooms with their family members, their college buddies, their high school friends, every single week, some every day. And it was almost leading to a higher level of connection than they already had over the phone, or the connection that they had, because when I look at, I could speaking from a personal experience, that I have a lot of friends that I stay connected with from college. The minute COVID hit, one of my friends started a Zoom group that we all sat on every week, at the end of the week on Friday. Everybody just kind of checked in and just shooting the stuff. I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss on here, Jason, but
yeah, you are. It's okay.
Yeah. So on this Zoom, and what the funny thing is that, we all lived in different states, so it's not like we saw each other that often. And now we're seeing each other every single week. So, without to be extremely long-winded answering this question, Riley, I'd say absolutely yes. The proof is in the pudding. Almost, I bet a lot of people that are watching this right now, I mean, if you've watched this for more than 5 or 10 minutes, you already gained a connection to a screen, if we want to call it that. We already drew you in a little bit, and that's not necessarily the goal. It's just that's what happens. If something relates to you, you draw in with it. And for our clients, we're talking about subjects that are just incredibly relative to their lives. So I'd say yes, in a longest version I could possibly give you.
Okay. And Maggie asked, what specifically is the most rewarding part of working with people through a clinical lens, Ian? That's a good question.
I would say, I think every therapist out there knows that they will personally benefit from providing benefit to other people. I'd say for me personally, the most rewarding part of working with people through a clinical lens is getting people to just see a different perspective. Is my biggest, for me, that's the part about that I like it the most as far as when it comes to clinical, is getting people to just, like you're at the eye doctor and just pop on a different lens just for a second, just to look at life differently. Just like when Jason and I were talking about, I don't know if this would have worked for me. And then I'll say a few things just to have him just, okay, let me take a different look at that. I was looking at it one way, but now I'm going to look at it this way.
Yeah, and just when somebody gets that willingness to be like, I don't know if I believe it's going to work, but you know what? Like, I trust you and I'll give it a shot. Like, I know for me, once I hit that point in my recovery, it just seemed like things got so much easier when I was trying to when I stopped fighting it, when I'm just, and I think that was the most important thing for me because it wasn't like, and I know I've mentioned this on the show before, that it wasn't like I had this big epiphany moment where there was like a ray of light that came through the window and I was on my knees praying and it was like, I'm gonna stay clean this time. I know it. It was just my little, my changes of attitude. Like, you know what? I obviously am in treatment for the 20th time because I can't get my shit together. You know what I mean? Like, I'm 42 years old. I don't have a bank account. I don't have a driver's license. I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. And that's scary as hell. So it's like, it took a little bit of weight off to find people who I trusted, like yourself in the professional realm. And then, with my 12-step sponsor and a couple of people who have been through it before and just been like, here's all my dirt. I'm going to lay it out to you. You guys help me sort it out, and it was just, it was, I can't, it was such a relief. I felt so much lighter. It was liberating. And it's like, I could imagine you when you see like a client that comes in who's kind of just not in a good place in their life and just, you don't know if this one's going to get it or not. And then you just see something change in them all of a sudden and they're this different person and they're being a little bit more humbled and just taking what you say, maybe with a grain of salt, but they're taking what you say. That must be just an amazing feeling.
I love it, honestly. I mean, yeah. I think it's what keeps me going. It's just, I don't, sometimes I've had people ask, how are you not burnt out from doing this for so long? And I don't necessarily really know an exact answer to that question. I can understand how that happens to people when it does happen and I see it, but I just can't personally relate. Not to say I'm better than or anything like that. It's just I think when you're doing something that you're passionate about and you feel purpose in it, it doesn't feel like work or it doesn't take you, doesn't drain your soul per se. Okay.
Yeah. So Ryan Spencer asks, what are the pros and cons of VIOP versus IOP? And first of all, for somebody who might be listening who doesn't understand exactly what we're talking about, what is IOP?
So IOP stands for Intensive Outpatient Program. And the VIOP part would be Virtual Intensive Outpatient Program. So as far as the pros and cons of VIOP versus IOP, when it comes to virtual services, we're looking at the ability to provide care to people that may have mobility limitations, or people that are in rural areas that don't have access to services. They don't have enough time or money to transport themselves to a program. They need to take care of children, or they can't get off their work early to make it there. When it comes to outpatient programs, IOPs, technically, usually they're either from 6 to 9 p.m. or 9 to 12 during the day. And for some people's work schedule, neither one of those work, right?
Right.
Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Hold on a second.
Okay. All right, we'll edit this part out, Greg, before it goes live. Got that 10-second window. But thanks y'all for chiming in with this. Ian's still giving me the 1 second, so I'm gonna kill a little bit of time here. Yeah, such a great question. Yes, we hear you. I'm just reading these out loud.
So you can hear me, but I can't hear you?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Can't hear
Should
me
I
at
just
all.
talk anyway? Okay.
Please.
Let's do that, and then I'll figure that out in a second. Oh, I can hear you now. There we go. We're back.
Perfect.
Yeah. So, like I said before, with the pieces of transportation, taking time off from work, childcare issues. I mean, people that are potentially scared of, catching the COVID. I mean, and also just take your person who has extreme social anxiety, who doesn't really, function well with going around a large group of people. They're not necessarily going to be, so excited to jump into that setting. And when you look at the IOP, intensive outpatient, versus the virtual option, the only difference really that I see is just that it's in person. You're just in person.
Right.
You're in that experience physically. But really, when you look at VIOP, you're still physically there. You're still physically getting on the Zoom, seeing the people, letting them see you, just as Jason could see me and I could see him, and just as anybody who's watching can see us as well. You're still doing that. So I don't see a massive amount of difference, except for where you physically are during that session. Good question though, Ryan.
And what about somebody who might need to detox and they're in a rural area, or might not be able to get to something easily? What is the standard practice for that now with VIOP?
So potentially, if somebody needs to detox, I mean, what we're going to recommend is they go to a higher level of care. That's going to look like an actual detox facility, if it needs to be a hospital, whatever it may be, because, I mean, that person is now presenting a high risk for themselves. Detoxing yourself from home is never something that we're going to recommend, nor is it something that we ever see that potentially works. I mean, there's every now and then a person does it, and it's scary. And I've talked to people that have done it, but it's never going to be something that we recommend or support.
Right. So yeah, on the opposite end of the spectrum to what we were talking about before, the best part of your jobs. I know one of the hardest part of your jobs is, when you have somebody who you see their disease, whatever you want to call it, their addiction is just kind of running the show. And this person's life is in jeopardy. And, Lisa Pascarosa jumped on a little bit earlier, and Ian was in a short documentary that I did about my friend Justin Enoch, who is Lisa Pascarosa's son, who lost his battle with addiction. And it ultimately happened by him trying to detox himself at home. He had struggled with heroin and opiates for many years, and then alcohol became his biggest issue. He was isolating, he was drinking a lot at home, and decided to detox himself. And to ease the discomfort from getting off of alcohol, he decided to get some pain medication off the street, some pain pills. They turned out to be counterfeit. They had all types of fentanyl in them, and it took his life. So it's very important to to not take that part of it into your own hands. You know, for these things, you definitely need medical treatment on. Yeah, Ian, if you could talk about the hard part of your job, which I'm sure it can't get much harder than that. Seeing somebody who's just such a light in the world,
Yeah.
whose addiction just is so powerful.
Yeah. I mean, I'll never forget Justin Enoch ever, because Justin, and I had the privilege of being able to work with Justin one-on-one many times, have many groups with him, have just extreme amount of one-on-one talks. I mean, I was always involved. I mean, even when he, when he was doing well and when he wasn't. I'd say this, Justin was probably one of the, extremely intelligent and probably one of the most talented musicians I've ever come across, working at Recovery Unplugged. And it's just a thing. And I probably had this exact conversation with Justin, is that unfortunately knowledge and intelligence doesn't beat addiction. Action and faith is what helps a person sustain their addiction and move into recovery. And he experienced, right. And here's the thing, I got to witness him do that as well. I got to witness him do well. I got to witness him not do well. One of the hardest parts of the job is seeing someone who just has these just massive amounts of potential, and again, can live and such a beautiful life and impact the world in so many different ways with the skills and talents that they have, and not have the ability to do so, or they're just so deep into the grips where, they'll look me in the face and say, Ian, you're right. I know, but I just can't get myself there right now. And I get it. I get it. And that's the toughest piece, is it's, what we do, not just me, really all the people at Recovery Unplugged, all the staff, from the top to bottom, from the executive directors to techs to maintenance to nursing to medical to doctors to therapists. Everybody is working to try to impact someone's life and change their minds. The hardest piece is seeing that happen, and it's incredibly sad, not just for that person, but for their family. Lisa, I see on here, my heart goes out to you and your family. And Justin is an amazing human being.
Yeah, I was able to go out. I went back to Florida a couple weeks ago, and me and my girlfriend, we actually brought some of Justin's ashes out there, and we brought him to the beach right near where the halfway house in Fort Lauderdale was, where we used to go all the time, and got to sprinkle a little bit of Justin's ashes there, and it just the lives that have been lost since I've been in treatment that I've known. I don't think many people are left from the group that I was in. Erica Murphy, myself, Mike Demchek, maybe a few others, but we lost so many people. And, like I was saying with Justin's case, that the fentanyl that's just showing up in everything. I mean, on the news the other day in Fort Lauderdale, some spring break kids thought they were getting a bag of cocaine, and they were going to do, a little bit of coke and go out and party, and then they all overdosed. I'm not sure that I don't think any of them died, but I know that at least 5 of them went to the hospital, and one of them wasn't even doing it, was just exposed to the fentanyl. So are you seeing a lot of increased cases with fentanyl? Is it different to treat than other street drugs?
Yeah, it is, just because of its potency and strength. You're never really going to know exactly what you're going to get these days. So it's me shooting out the average statistic that it's 10 times more powerful than heroin is what most people would read online. But sometimes it might be even more potent, right, or less. It really just depends. I've heard so many different cases of overdose. What we see a lot today is many clients who just think that they're using pills, and then they come in, they test positive for fentanyl. It happens all the time. I can think of 4 or 5 people off the top of my head recently who came in, who we had to let them know hey, like, did you know that you were using fentanyl? And they said, I had no idea. They're like, well,
Right.
first of all, they were like, no, I wasn't. I was using Percocet or whatever it may be. And, and then they come to find out that it was then fentanyl. So, I mean, we're seeing a huge uptake in it. I don't think that, I think that, being addicted to opiates today is a lot different than it was 6 years ago.
6 years ago. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Like I got clean coming up on 6 years. And, I think I made it in just in time because all the people from my neighborhood who I was buying from, using from, like they're not around anymore. And it's at just, I think every generation of addicts or alcoholics or whatever are going to say, it's not like it used to be right now, but I can't see it getting much worse than it is right now. What do you say to say? So Ian is a parent. Ian recently just announced that he's about to have a second child. He has a beautiful baby girl and now has a son on the way. So congratulations on that. And Rachel,
thank you.
Your better half. I definitely will say that with conviction.
Opinions,
but but as a parent yourself, what do you think about? How would you talk to your kids? How are you going to talk to your kids when the time comes? And what do you think is the best measure for harm reduction when it comes to this? If you have a kid that you think might be experimenting or might want to experiment, like where does harm reduction come in with that?
Jason, I've thought about this many times, and I'd say this is that I don't know how what I'm going to do yet when that time comes. I think, obviously, my children are going to know what I do and what my wife does. She also works in this field. And, it's, addiction doesn't discriminate. So I'm not going to rule out the fact that my children won't be exposed to drugs and alcohol, because I know they will. Because I know it's going to happen. And, really is just as far as like, the type of communication, it's really just going to be a lot of education, so my piece that I'll give and my advice to anybody out there going through this as well would be educate your kids on what's really happening out there, not through scare tactics, but just through education. Will it immediately change their mind? Will it make them not want to do it? No, but having that knowledge at least gives them the opportunity to make a calculated decision. Right. Otherwise, they're going to be shooting from the hip that first day that somebody offers them something. They're just going to be like, well, my friends are all doing it, so I might as well. But if they come into it knowing a little more, I'm not saying that they won't do it. I'm just saying at least they'll have an idea of what they might be getting themselves into. So, and that's just me shooting from the hip on this right now. I haven't really planned out this discussion. My daughter's 2 right now, so I'm going to savor the
you got a little
innocence.
while.
Yeah.
So when do you think would be a good age to talk to kids about it?
Nowadays, I mean, it's looking like 11, which is wild, right? Really probably more into middle school. I mean, I've done some private practice work on the side with middle school students, high school students. I mean, and it's so much different. Everybody's got a cell phone and they're all, on social media seeing this and that, and they go into the bathroom and everybody's vaping and they're all smoking. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's really, I guess right now, if we want to pinpoint the age, first conversation, 6th grade.
Yeah. I mean, that seems like thinking back, I think that's when I started like smoking cigarettes and probably had my first puff of weed or whatever. And then I was a late bloomer though, so it was there was a long gap between that and my heavy using years.
Got it.
So knowing that Recovery Unplugged is a music-based program, right? Music does make the difference at Recovery Unplugged. How are we using the music-based treatment with the virtual services?
So in the beginning, it was first just figuring out, okay, do we have the ability to share sound? Yes, we do. We can share screen, we can share sound. Because that was firstly, it's, actually the very first, just to give you an idea of how we did our very first pump up in virtual. I ran our first group, and I pulled out my phone, and I played music on my phone right through the speaker, through the microphone on my laptop. And we danced, and we did our thing. That was, me not having that knowledge yet. But as far as how we're using the music, it's not far off from how we use the music in our other program, in the in-person program, of using music as a catalyst to engage people. Whether that means exercising that person's own creative talents, or whether that means having that person identify specific songs, and experiences that can create that anchor, right? Just like a wedding song does. People typically don't forget that song because it's significant. It's linked to an experience. We're trying to link music to experiences that people have in treatment. I see somebody, just commented, not everyone could be a musician, but everyone has a favorite song. I agree 1,000%. That's the thing. You do not have to be a musician or have musical talent to enjoy yourself at Recovery Unplugged. You just have to like music and like getting treated with respect.
Definitely treated with respect. So I was just going to go into my first couple of days at Recovery Unplugged as a client. So Recovery Unplugged was the 20th time that I had gone to treatment. I had gone to treatment 19 times before, and I will never say anything bad about the place that I had gone the previous times. It was a county-run facility in Broward County. I know plenty of people who stayed clean or sober going to that facility, right?
Mm-hmm.
But my first day at Recovery Unplugged, I spent more time with my therapist in that initial conversation than I believe I had spent with my therapist at the other place in a 30-day treatment, in a whole 30-day time frame. So like one day I'm getting like this personalized attention that I need, like asking me about things, and I'm still fucking detoxing. I'm feeling like shit. I'm shaking. I'm throwing up. I'm running to the bathroom every few minutes. And they put me into a group, and I'm probably a little standoffish just because of how I'm feeling physically, right? And I remember thinking in my head, like, and I think this is not uncommon when somebody just comes in on a detox. They think they're going to have the first day off and they could ease into things, and that might be the case if you're really rough. But they put me into a group, and everybody's going around, and the therapist didn't ask me to get up there and tell my story and make myself completely vulnerable to the group. They asked, is there a song right now that you could play that's kind of like that could tell us what you're feeling right now? And being such a music nerd, like I was just like, I lit up, and I was just like, this place is amazing, man. And like I am 100% being like honest from the heart on this. Like that day really changed me, and it was just such a different feeling than everything else. And like like it would said, you don't have to be a musician. So I didn't know if I was going to go in there and have to try to sing my story or do anything like that. But just to be able to do little things like that, play a song, give us this lyric. What song brings you back to your childhood? What song do you listen to when you're going through something and you need a little boost? Like that kind of shit, man. That changed my life.
Absolutely. And we didn't create this, right? Sometimes some of our clients that come in, they're like, listen, I got 16 different Spotify playlists for all my emotions. And, this is something that we're harnessing and being able to link that with experiential group practices to make it even better. I'm going to give you a tiny short story about my first experience with Recovery Unplugged. Yeah. My very first experience with Recovery Unplugged, before I didn't even know it existed, I was working at another treatment center in South Florida, and I had a client. I was working with a client, and that client had been to Recovery Unplugged before, and he always talked about it. He said, like, that's the best place I've ever been and probably will ever go to. And I was like, why? What made it so good? He's like, man, the people are just so good there, and they actually give a shit. And I was like, okay, and I just stored the information. So then the treatment center I worked for closed, and then I got a call from somebody, and they're like, hey, Recovery Unplugged's looking for a therapist, and I was looking for a job. So I was like, you know what? I remembered that client telling me that, so automatically I was excited about it. And then I get there, and I interview with two of the co-founders, because Recovery Unplugged was very small at this time. It was just one little PHP IOP facility in Florida. This is
what year was this?
2015.
Okay.
And I go in there, and we're talking about all the stuff and therapist roles, duties, and that's all boring, right? But anyway, the thing that sold me automatically was when they told me that at the end of the pre-screen admission that happens over the phone, they ask a client what's their favorite genre of music and what's a song that inspires them to get sober. And then when they go and pick them up from the airport or from wherever, that's playing in the car when they pick them up. And I was like, that's it.
Yeah.
I'm in. I literally said the words when they said that to me. The interview had already been going pretty well. I literally just told them, I'm in. I'm in. I'm about it. You don't even need to tell me anything else. Just that piece alone, because I was so used to working for these large treatment centers that not necessarily were bad, but just the focus on individualized care wasn't really there. Where there's like, let's give this person an individualized special experience, that's tailored to them, right? Just like you had, and just like many of the clients that come through our program have. That is what made the biggest difference for me, was that piece right there. That was the thing that sold me, and then among a million other things.
Yeah, and I think I came in on a Thursday, and then the next day I came in was the Feel Good Friday with Richie Supa playing, and everybody everybody seemed to be. I mean, you always have different groups of people. Sometimes they won't be that great of a group, and sometimes everybody will just be really feeling it in a good mood. And I think I was just in there with the right group of people for me at that time. Everybody was like engaged, everybody was singing along, and like I said, I was still feeling like shit. I was still coming off of more or less a 20-year opiate run, with a couple of breaks in between. So I was not at my best. I was shaking, I wasn't feeling well. So that really, really changed my life, man. So, and Nancy said on here, Music Cares was a huge part of getting me into treatment and helping me pay with some of the financial. So thank you, Music Cares. Thank you, Recovery Unplugged. I can't say enough. So Maggie asked, how do you see music impacting people just coming into treatment at any level of care?
Firstly, it's that story I just told. That's the first time I see it. And then other times, I mean, one time I was sitting with a guy who wanted to leave treatment, and we're going back and forth for like 45 minutes. And then I looked at, I had my laptop out in front of me, and I peeped in his pre-admission and pulled out the song that he wrote down that inspires him. And I literally, while he's right in the middle of talking, I just started playing it. And, and I just sat back. And I shit you not, he just sat there and then sang the song.
Yeah.
And then, obviously some more talking ensued after that. And then he decided to stay, but just that song reminded him. He's like, man, I really needed to hear that to just make sure, to put me back on track, remind me about why I'm doing this. So, I mean, as far as like just coming into treatment, sometimes it's a song that, that really inspired them to just start the process in the first place. I mean, the story that's told so many times is one of our, when Recovery Unplugged first became an idea, was when one of our co-founders was working for drug court, I believe, or DUI court. I'm not sure the exact details, and he's picking somebody
Paul Pellinger up. When he was Yeah, that's a great story. So Paul Pellinger was taking a client from, was it from prison or to prison? I'm trying to remember.
From
prison. Yeah, and he just put on the song. What's the song? It's Marshall Tucker Band, right? Can't you see what that woman has been doing to me. That song. If anybody could help me out with that song. And the guy in the back seat who was just some real rough, just got out of prison guy, just like broke down, started telling Paul his life story, and that gave Paul the initial idea, the incubation in his head to start Recovery Unplugged, which has just gone on to save so many lives.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And we are, if I'm not mistaken, we're expanding a little bit with some mental health services too, right? So some people who are not only struggling with drug and alcohol addiction, but might have depression, anxiety. What are some of the other things that we're helping with now?
So in our virtual services track, originally this began as just treating primarily substance abuse, which has kind of, been our main go-to, ever since being open is focusing on substance abuse and addiction. And then the idea just kind of sprung about to like, well, let's have a mental health track as well. Because what really exists out there for your moderate to high functioning adult in an outpatient program setting to receive mental health treatment for depression, anxiety, PTSD, bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, these things where people are struggling with this and they need something a little bit more intensive than a one-on-one therapy session each week and working with a psychiatrist once a month. It's not enough for some people. And unfortunately, the only thing that's really out there doing what this is, the most things that if somebody looked up mental health program, it's typically going to be at a hospital. And it's not me saying that those programs aren't good or it's not good enough, but typically you're going to be in there with a lot of people that just got out of the psych unit who are probably experiencing a little bit more acute or severe mental health issues rather than your moderate to high functioning adult. In our mental health program right now, we have people, we have mothers, we have fathers, we have students, we have nurses. We have people who, are, very high functioning on the outside, but on the inside are still struggling. And they're still struggling with pain, depression, anxiety that they're trying to deal with. And it's like, and here's the other thing. Let's go back to the benefits of virtual. Let's just talk about the stigma alone of mental health. Right. The stigma alone of like, oh, well, you have a therapist, right? And then they're like, well, no, it's not a therapist, it's a life coach. So it's a lot of people today aren't really willing to admit that they're in therapy. So this allows people, we're not trying to help people hide their problems, right? But this is allowing people to access the help they need from the comfort of their own home without taking time off from work, without having to worry about transportation, without having to worry about child care, elder care, whatever it may be, to be able to hop online and be able to access that group therapy setting that they typically wouldn't have received before. We have people that are coming into this mental health program that have never been in group therapy in their life, and they're saying, wow, this is really what I needed.
And how long has the virtual services been going on for now?
Jason, I'm a therapist, not a mathematician, but since July of 2021. So what is that? 5,
that's good enough. That's good enough.
3, 8 months. 8 months.
That was good. You're quick.
Not bad. That wasn't bad.
Yeah.
I was stalling.
Right. And have you seen it working for people? Is it something that you see?
Yeah. At first, of course, there's always that initial doubt, but that's with anything in life that we all experience when we're doing something new. We're going to be like, is this going to work? Are people going to like it? Right. It's just like, any person that walks into a crowded room. Are people going to like me? So, of course, there was that initial doubt. And then as it was going, the average length of stay that we're seeing is somewhere around 8 weeks. And then typically what most insurance companies are offering people to complete is about 10 weeks. And we have had many, many people over the last 8 months complete 10 weeks of services, 10-week commitment of group therapy, individual therapy, psychiatric services, case management. There's a lot more services that they're getting than just the therapy piece. This is really, we're trying to create a wraparound service for our clients. So I mean,
right.
Long answer, yes, or short answer,
long
yes.
answer, yes.
Long answer.
Good. I'm glad they align.
Yes.
I'm glad they. Ian, lean in towards your name. Put your shoulder towards the all the way to the side.
Oh,
Other
well, we
way.
talked
Other
earlier
way.
about how when I move this way,
Other
it goes
way.
the other
Other way.
Yeah.
I gotta pinch you, man. It's St. Patrick's Day.
Oh.
And you are not wearing green, man. You were just begging for that. What are you thinking?
You know, what am I thinking? I'll tell you this. You know, growing up, having a red beard, Jason. You know, I think the leprechaun comments just stopped. You know, just recently. You know, and then, you know, and just when I put on a green shirt, it automatically I look in the mirror and I just want to go find my Lucky Charms. You know, so it's a little weird.
Yeah, well, that never popped into my head. So maybe that's something you need to work on. Maybe some virtual services might help with that.
Well,
James, what's up, James? There he is. Therapist from Lake Worth. Good to see you, man. It's been a while.
James Cody. Seen this guy come a long way. He was an intern with Recovery Unplugged at first and then got hired.
I remember.
He's been with us for quite a while now. Congrats, James. Yeah. Good to see you on here.
Yeah, man. I remember just when he was just remember when he was just filling up the 5-pods. He was just filling up the MP3 players with music, and now look at him running shit. Congratulations, James. Good to see you. So we're running out of time here. Do you have anything that you'd like to close with to everybody out there? I guess it's rapid fire question time. Sorry. Okay.
Hit me with something.
Are you ready for this?
Please.
All right. Summer or winter time, and why?
Summer, just because it's better.
No, sorry. Incorrect.
Fair.
Correct answer is winter. We have Christmas. You can wear sweaters.
Okay.
All right.
Debatable.
Beatles or the Stones?
Beatles. Hands down.
Again, wrong answer. The correct answer would be, why do I have to choose? They're both great bands.
Ooh. Okay. All right. Well said.
All right. And finally, burgers or tacos?
I'm going to go with my gut is telling me burgers. But I'd love to hear your input on this one.
Well, I am of Mexican descent, so of course I'm gonna say tacos. But that one I was leaving. That one was up to you. There was no wrong answer to that one. So that one was we'll give you that one by default.
I appreciate that. 33%, a lot of room for improvement.
My mom said both. All right. So any one more thing that we always like to ask. So what is Ian's song? If Ian's having a bad day, things aren't going that well, what's the one song that you turn on? Maybe you're going to the gym, you're going to play golf, and just going to. What are you listening to?
You know, it's been changing so much for me lately. You know, I'd say one of the most impactful songs in my life is Third Eye Blind Jumper. It just and we won't go into the whole story, just really resonates. And then as far as what gets me going, you know, there's so many, but you know, I'm gonna be honest, lately it's been Lil Nas X.
Nice.
You might not have seen that coming.
No, I didn't. I like the mix up. Now I know that you have really vast taste in music. You like everything. And let me tell you, everybody out there, you have not lived until you've heard Ian sing Crazy by Gnarls Barkley, or For the Longest Time by Billy Joel. I've had the distinct pleasure to hear Ian belt out both of those numbers. And I mean, I think that's why I'm clean today. I owe it all to that.
I didn't know that anybody remembered the Gnarls Barkley one. I know the other one was a little bit. I didn't know you were there that day. I blacked out when it happened. You know, I mean, I was in the zone
from hitting all those notes, right?
If you say so. I'm not even going to ask you to elaborate on that.
All right, man. It's been such a pleasure, Ian. Do you have any closing statements to maybe somebody out there who's still struggling?
I'd say this is that, you know, there is hope. because it's something that I've seen every single day, and I'm very confident to say that I know that we can, and somebody else can also help you as well. It's not just us. There's a lot of people out there doing the right thing. I love what we do here, and it's not just the music that makes us different. We truly treat people with respect and love, and that is our number one goal. And there's a bunch of other really cool shit that we do at Recovery Unplugged, but as number one, you will be respected.
And I could attest to that. That is 100% accurate. Thank you again, Ian. For me, Jason Cabello, behind the scenes, Greg and Joseph Gorordo, who is out there enjoying South by Southwest. Thank you all for tuning in. And remember, there's 1,000 ways in and 1,000 ways out. So we hope you find your way. Tune in next week. Thank you all.